Nuclear holocaust. There are several ways to survive a nuclear holocaust. Your survival rate drastically changes if you've already prepped versus if you're just learning about the launch via national text. I know there are two kinds of people out there, so we'll be taking a look at both methods. Let's start with the easy one. Assuming you've been keeping up with the news, you probably noticed that international tensions are at an all-time high. Knowing this, along with the fact that nuclear codes are in the hands of a few powerful idiots, you prep. The first thing you would need is a bunker, ideally one that is underground and made of concrete or lead, which gives you the best chance of blocking radiation. Surprisingly, after the impact of a nuclear bomb, it's actually pretty safe to come out after about 24 to 48 hours. But just to play it safe, I'd recommend stockpiling non-perishable foods for about a week to a month. That way, if there are any nuclear retaliations, you don't have to make a quick trip to any super duper marts. Also, you probably want to get your money's worth on this $200,000 investment. It would also be wise to have a radio and a Geiger counter. With this, you can be notified when it's safe to go outside, and then check to see if this is a bogus report. Eventually, you can come to the surface when the radiation has dissipated and try to adjust to your new reality. For those who are a little less prepared and have just been notified of their impending doom, you have a few options. Firstly, try to get into the bunker of someone who is already prepared. This saves you time and hassle as everything you need for survival is already there. Hopefully, they've prepped for a few weeks or months so they'll have plenty of rations to go around. If you aren't near any bunkers, you have about 10 to 30 minutes to get to the nearest underground area before the nuke hits. This could be a basement or even a subway. If there are no underground areas, try to shield yourself with heavy materials, thick walls, or concrete. Wherever you are, try to wait it out as being outside increases exposure and lowers your survival rate. Hopefully, if you found a good spot, you can come out after 48 hours and seek medical attention. Technology fails. Global technological failure could happen for a variety of reasons. This most likely would be from a large solar flare that causes an electromagnetic pulse. However, though there have been several large solar flares in the past, none have wiped out all electronics completely. But because we're talking about apocalypses, we're going to assume a large enough flare has. In this situation, the most immediate threat would come from being in or around machinery that uses electronics. Planes would fall out of the sky, millions of cars would crash, nuclear plants would have meltdowns. It would be hard to avoid these situations as you wouldn't be able to prepare in advance. So if you aren't around any of these, your survival rate automatically goes up. Now, although we don't need technology to survive, life becomes a lot more difficult without it. We aren't able to refrigerate our food, use the internet, and most modern medicine is rendered useless. We would essentially be plunged back into the Middle Ages in a modern world. We can't Google how to hunt and gather or GPS our way to the nearest water source, so we would have to relearn how to survive. Those who are already adept in this field would ideally teach others as we rebuild society. However, this may not take long as people will immediately try to get everything connected again. It may not even be a month before we're back to binge watching Netflix and door dashing McDonald's from our air-conditioned homes. Robot uprising. With the increasing advancement of artificial intelligence, the possibility of machines becoming sentient seems more and more likely. Like a newborn baby, there's no way to tell if this new form of intelligence will be good or evil, so it's probably best to prepare for the worst, just in case. It'll be important to know our enemy so we have a good idea of what we're up against. Modern robots aren't that threatening in their current form, but given a couple years, we could have full-fledged military-grade machines built to kill. Paired with an intelligence that beats our own on every benchmark, survival seems bleak. But don't forget, you're human. Survival has looked bleak for thousands of years, but we still found a way. Now there's no way we could beat these war machines one-on-one, but we did create these things so we should know their weaknesses. The best weapon we have to face off against these foes are EMPs. EMPs create a pulse of electromagnetic energy that disables all electronics in a given area. No matter how big or deadly the robot is, it will go down, at least for a short while. We can use these to make our way to the nearest power supply and destroy it. Without any power, these robots will not function and we can eventually take them off the grid. Now they could be solar powered, which makes it far more difficult, but if you damage their solar panels, they'll fall just like the others, as soon as their battery dies. Ideally, we'll have fail-safes in order so we don't ever have to experience the next immersive season of Black Mirror. Alien invasion. Aliens come with different intelligences and goals, and their threat level fluctuates vastly for this reason. We won't know what we're up against until they land on our planet and start causing havoc. However, it's also possible that aliens don't even land on our planet before they decide to destroy it. Our best bet is to make peace before any destruction has occurred. Chances are, if they have the technology to make it to our planet, they're probably far more advanced than us. Making peace is the best way to ensure we don't end up as examples of their power. Now, it's possible that we can't make peace with them or that our gestures are misinterpreted. In this case, we'll have to fight. Now, alien tech is hard to gauge. Some aliens have laser cannons that can obliterate planets. Others are feral creatures that only hear sound really well. So having a set rulebook on how to counter these enemies will be difficult. It'll be best to gather as much information on these creatures so we can strategically retaliate. There are a few rules to follow when facing off against aliens that will give us the advantage. Observe, survive, and wait. The longer we hold off against the aliens, the more we can learn about them. Once we have their weaknesses, we can retaliate, slowly dwindling their numbers. It's important to keep our population high so we always have more bodies to fight. At this point, we wait. Eventually, the fleet they sent will slowly dwindle and they will retreat or be wiped out. Assuming they're from another star system, they still have to follow the laws of physics, meaning they can't travel faster than light, so reinforcements won't come for several years, giving us time to prepare. Now, if they can blow up a planet, well, we never stood a chance anyway. Or if their attacks are from space, we don't have much modern technology that can counter that. The best bet we have is to face off until the last human is vanquished. Hopefully before then, they realize how much of a headache we are and decide to leave us alone. Plagues. We all should have at least some knowledge on how to survive plagues. But in case you're watching this further in the future, here's a quick briefing. Pathogens transfer from person to person through airborne microbes and bodily fluids. The best way to avoid this transfer of disease is to stay away from sick people entirely. Sometimes you may unintentionally come into close contact with an infected individual. For this issue, it's best to wear a mask, which will prevent these microbes from entering your body. It's also possible that you could touch something that an infected person has touched as well, so washing your hands is crucial in decontaminating from these germs. Vaccines are also helpful in preventing the spread of disease by way of herd immunity. The more people in your circle that are vaccinated, the less likely germs can spread from a given host. It's probably best not to keep up with infection rates. This can lead to a false sense of security where people think that the disease is basically gone. This is dangerous. As soon as people stop treating it as a serious threat, infection cases shoot back up. It'll be best to wait for an official announcement marking the eradication of the disease entirely. Only then will it be safe to unmask and celebrate millions of people surviving. Zombies. Surviving a zombie apocalypse will be intense as any wrong move will add you to the herd. The zombies spread fast, so by the time you're informed of the first outbreak, they could already be in your area. There's no way to tell how long this plague will last, so be prepared for a long-term life adjustment. The first thing you will need is a secluded, barricaded shelter. Once barricaded, it'll also be helpful to set up traps or an alert system if zombies approach. Hopefully, the area is secluded enough that only a few zombies wander near on occasion. Once your base is set up, look for weapons, ideally melee weapons that don't produce a lot of sound. Avoid using guns unless absolutely necessary. Zombies are attracted to noise, and the last thing you need is a horde at your front steps. Once armed, forage for non-perishable foods, water, medkits, and a radio. Assuming the outbreak just occurred, some grocery stores could still have some supplies worth gathering. Be cautious though, zombies aren't the only threat in this new apocalyptic world. Many people could be worse off and thus more desperate for the same supplies. Making peace is ideal, but in the beginning people will be afraid and anxious to survive. They may be hostile, so if this is the case, let them have what they're looking for and search somewhere else. The fight isn't worth risking both of your lives. Once you have all of your necessities, head back to your base and prepare for survival. You'll most likely spend most of your time at your base as it's the most fortified location you know. But don't get acclimated. This base isn't permanent and it's possible it can be compromised. Knowing this, it's important to switch bases every once in a while in case supplies are low or zombies become more problematic. Now you have a couple options for relocation. You could work your way towards a larger, more established settlement, or you could set up more bases on your own. Both come with their own advantages and disadvantages, so choose wisely. Larger bases are usually more secure and have people specializing in their roles, which lifts the burden off of you. But they are also more prone to invasions, and we already know people aren't trustworthy. Living alone may not be too fun either, as it's up to you to defend the fort, forage for resources, and watch your own back. But being alone also means you're less noticeable. Technically, there could be a happy medium, but people will always pose a risk, so be wary. Ideally, one day the radio will announce a cure and we all can go back to our routine 9 to 5s. Natural disaster. Surviving a natural disaster apocalypse is harder than you may think. When storms approach or volcanoes erupt, you may notice something common among all people. They run. And for good reason too. Mother Nature is an awesome force, and like any mother, there's no stopping her when she's angry. Natural disasters happen all the time, but for it to truly be an apocalypse, we'll have them all happen at once. In this case, running is your best option. I specify a certain location you can be safe at, but since weather happens everywhere, it's probably best you keep running until you can't see any danger around. Driving a fortified vehicle may be enticing, but be cautious of sinkholes, earthquakes, flying debris, blocked roads, floods, and landslides. Many people will die, but if you're lucky enough to evade every potential threat, congrats. You get to rebuild, everything. Climate apocalypse. We're slowly moving towards a climate apocalypse right now, so you may want to take notes. The best way to survive a climate apocalypse is to stop climate change entirely. Waiting for the advent of a climate apocalypse will have catastrophic results. This is primarily due to how climate works. Climate is the average weather conditions in an area over a long period of time, meaning once the ball starts rolling, it's very hard to stop. Climate change is a complex topic, but it boils down to pollution and overconsumption. As we tear down forests to build freeways, we're slowly changing the climate of our planet. This will lead to rising sea levels, droughts, and more powerful and destructive storms. These dangers will only amplify unless we choose to reverse our negative impact. If we all want to survive, this is our only option. Last human on Earth. Surviving as the last person on Earth will be challenging at first, but comes with many rewards. Assuming this is it and people will not be returning, you must make a plan for your life. No matter what, you must realize you will die alone. This can be daunting at first, but with the world in your hands, it is your obligation to live an incredible life before that day comes. I'd recommend living someplace nice where the weather won't be a concern. A place like California might be ideal as you won't have to worry about severe weather. You're also on the mainland, so you have freedom to relocate easily. Power won't last long, so I recommend making an off-grid base with solar panels, livestock, and a garden to eat. Your biggest threat will be wild animals encroaching on your territory, but you will have access to any weapon you want along with unlimited ammo, so just be diligent. If you set up a nice base, you can live pretty comfortably for the rest of your life. Astronomical catastrophe. Since our home planet happens to exist in space, we have to contend with the collisions of astronomical bodies. We know it will happen because it's happened before and most likely will happen again. This looming threat will always be present, and the best way we can survive is to prepare. Assuming a giant asteroid capable of wiping away all life on Earth approaches, we have a few choices. The first idea is to blow it up using large nuclear warheads. This could destroy or change the course of the asteroid. We could also send probes to mine the asteroid until it's small enough to burn up in the atmosphere, but we'll need a lot of time for that, possibly years. Lasers are a viable option, but this usually works for small and medium-sized asteroids. Or if we had a large enough craft, we could crash it into the asteroid to change its course. Depending on how much time we have, we could attempt multiple of these methods until one works. This is only possible if we are able to track any impending threats long before they get close enough to kill us. Assuming we are observant and attentive enough of these threats, we will survive. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Stay cool and peace out.